And hello, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff edition of the 2021 season here on Coach's Corner, now on Rivalry Family Media. Great to have you along with us. Todd Robbins joined, as always, by Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates. Coach, great to have you back here with us. Great to finally be together, even if it is 3-4 months delayed from when we all should have gotten together. But it's almost 1 year ago now that March 13th came along. The world kind of ceased to move forward. And just a few weeks into that COVID shutdown, you and I had an interview on Press Row talking about what we thought might be maybe, an off season that would be strange or different or unique, but full well expecting that there may be some form of a football season months later. And now almost a year's gone by and there's been no football in calendar year 2020.
Yeah, well, Todd, great to see you. It's great to be back and talking some football. It's been a long time coming. But yeah, almost a year. It's crazy, and it still doesn't feel like it was that long ago because living the football life, you're always referring back to the last season, even if it was a year and a half ago. Still that's what we're building on after the end of last year. But good to be back and happy to get things rolling again.
No question about that. As a coaching staff and as a coach in general, what has the last year been like? As a coach, as a mentor, trying to set an example for student athletes, some that you really couldn't directly interact with except through
I've seen some coaches do some tremendous things with being remote with kids in terms of workouts. And, we've tried to provide our kids with resources during this time, keeping lines of communication open and constant, making sure that we're touching base weekly. I know that parents and coaches and kids are probably sick of hearing from me on our communication site. I'm on there, multiple times a day, and it's probably bordering on white noise now, but communication has been key, following up with academics, making sure that kids are staying engaged. It's it's been tough. It's been tough. There's so long of doing this model of learning, and this lack of socialization, for lack of a better term. It's affected our guys, and you can see it when we just came back, just trying to adjust to being around a group of people again, or a bigger group of people again. It's been it was more I think kids were more affected by it than I thought. But like I said, academically it's been a challenge. Kids are working hard, but just the setting that it's in is what presents the issue. But we've stayed in communication. Our guys are excited. The energy level has been, you'll probably hear me say it about 100 times during this interview, but the kids have brought the energy. They're excited to be back, and we got to make sure that we capitalize on that and and keep their excitement going.
And that can certainly make all the difference in the world. When I think about the sad but vitally necessary separation that we've all been experiencing in one way or another, to be able to begin to head in the direction of normal and to get back together, as you said, I have to imagine, at least from a standpoint of mental health, certainly has to have your athletes feeling a heck of a lot better than they were feeling so kind of far apart from the overall program.
Especially today when it's above 32 degrees. That definitely helps. Yeah, you can see right when we get everybody back, together again, everybody smiles, happy to see each other, and it's been like a family reunion. It's really been great since we got back, and our players are great in terms of their connection with each other and the way they root for each other, and our coaching staff is they're there because they love the kids, and it's just been, food for the soul, I should say, to be back. And I know it's been great for me. That's for sure.
No question about that. I have no doubt getting back among one another, has to have felt good. When I imagine what that first day was like, was there a point of, maybe awkwardness or hesitancy as people were starting to come back together and kind of unite, or were they literally trying to rip the door off, trying to get in the gym?
Well, I think getting in and getting busy, yeah, they were absolutely ready to do that. But when it comes to the drills and like how far apart do we stand, and like, is this okay? Is this not okay? I think there's still a lot of kind of figuring that awkwardness of being in a bigger group. And we try, as coaches, to have plans for everything, and make sure that we have the kids' safety at the forefront of what we're doing. Um, but yeah, a little bit of awkwardness, and I know for me, it was nerve wracking making sure all the logistics are going the way they're supposed to be. But that's my job. The coaches did a great job coaching. The players showed up with enthusiasm, and that's what we wanted. But it's the first couple practices were indoors while Doyle was getting cleared, and now that Doyle is cleared, it's definitely a lot better of a situation for us, a lot safer of a situation for us. So we're thankful to Jimmy Clark and other guys from the Leominster DPW that did a great job at clearing Doyle and giving us a place to be able to get after it.
No question about that. I saw, some conversation as the fall season progressed and there was no football in this region. There were a lot of opinions that were circulating about, how would this affect, football? How would the future weather, affect football in the long run? But I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit on your thought process. Although football was missed last fall and has been relocated, and now there's the potential for 19 games, in one calendar year, and all of the things that are going to be dealt with in that process. At least from an outsider's perspective, I think there was an opportunity to see what worked elsewhere and allowing other states to maybe go first and kind of test through, figure out what works and what doesn't. How much of that learning were you able to do based on what you were able to read and see and observe from surrounding states and obviously all across the country, and then adapt that to things like your practice plan and your layout and things like that?
Sure. Yeah. No, I followed the other states that played in the fall pretty closely in terms of, looking at, whatever information was available in terms of, infection numbers, positivity rates, stuff like that. And, what was consistent across the board is that, there wasn't a lot of transmission that was happening on the field, during gameplay or during practices. A lot of it was, through at home or indoor, like social gatherings or something like that may have happened in practice. So the data that was out there, that there wasn't a lot of transmission, from player to player at practices or games. So that was very encouraging. And the other stats that popped up that were concerning to me and and a lot of other coaches, and is the amount of dropout rates that some states were seeing with kids, because of COVID. The amount of um, um, there was just a lot of negativity in terms of the impact that being remote has caused. Um, so getting back and getting into the swing of things here, obviously the mental aspect of it, it's been huge. Um, and that's why I'm glad the MIAA and Massachusetts took the step to be able to have it. I think it's definitely a leap for them to go and do it, considering that Connecticut decided not to have it. Maine had it in the fall, but they could have followed suit with Connecticut, but they give us the green light, and I think our kids and our communities will be very thankful to that. Once the season's over, I think it's going to be I think it's going to go very well.
Months ago, being a part of the listserv, among this program, I'm very fortunate to have that kind of access. I was able to look at your practice plan, and I know it was available literally months ago. You got out the PowerPoint and the Photoshop and started, dividing up Doyle Field and devising your practice plan. Safety was clearly your number one priority, but as you were trying to figure out and move the puzzle pieces around, what kind of a challenge did that present in trying to figure out how you could be a cohesive team and yet be socially distant while being cohesive? Those two things don't seem like they belong together in the grand scheme of things.
No, they don't. I mean, and it's I'm not going to sacrifice. We couldn't sacrifice safety. That was something that we had to have at the forefront and make sure that we were doing. Luckily, like from when I made those first practice plans, there had been some adjustments from the rules committee and the MIAA that that kind of opened things up a little bit more. We were able to get some later practice times at Doyle too. So I think the first practice, I was trying to figure out how we could practice with JV and varsity on the same field together. And now that we have separate practice times, it really opens things up a lot. So it's, we have more than enough room now to do what we need to do and stay safe. And also to get the kids the coaching that they need. That was a big concern with having to split up the groups. What kind of, we don't want to hurt the kids' development, but there is going to be a hit there if we need to separate. And, it's, there's a lot of reps going on there, but in terms of the one-to-one coaching with the league coaches for those positions, it was going to, not be as inclusive as it normally is for us. But the way that it shook out at the end there with having two different practices, it actually works out better for us where, we're getting our kids are getting coached, and they're getting coached a lot, and they're getting a lot of reps. So we're really excited about that.
I've got to ask the, of course, loaded question that I know is on the minds of both parents, not just in your program, but in parents involved with football or just broadly involved in sports right now. In your opinion, in your expertise, and based on your experience, is the sport of football safe under these conditions?
I think so. Yeah, I think being outside, obviously, I was nervous with the inside practices and everything too. So being outside, it definitely feels a lot safer. The kids are being masked. To me, it feels very safe. The kids are respecting it, and it's I don't. I mean, there's always something in the back of your head that you always worry that it's there, it can spread. But I feel like our kids are really respecting it right now. It feels like it's a safe space for us to be able to go and play the game the way it's supposed to be played.
And that is such an important point. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we turn to some of the rules modifications or lack thereof in a couple of moments. But obviously, you had that first opportunity to address your team in whether it was virtually or whether it was in person when you guys started to get together. As you and the coaching staff have been devising your messaging around this and kind of trying to set the conversation with the student athletes, what has your messaging been to the student athletes about your expectations and, of course, how they conduct themselves as it surrounds their safety?
Sure. Well, I mean, our on the field expectations stay the same, and this doesn't deter from that at all. And just trying to not make it a huge deal in terms of this is what we have to do. It's cut and dry. It's not we're not giving it more attention that it's needed. We're just like, this is how we're going to operate. This is how it's going to be. You either do it and you play, or you don't, and you're not going to get a uniform, or you're not going to be on the sidelines for us. So since we kind of painted it with that brush, it's the kids have respected it, and we have to give reminders a lot of times for spacing and stuff like that too. But I mean, it's the same things happening at the schools. I'm in the school too. Hey guys, give yourself a little bit of space. So it's happening, but the guys are really good about it. They don't make a big deal out of it. Say put your mask back on. If you get something to drink, they put their mask back on. So it's just kind of become part of routine now, and it's just what we're doing. It's not, and to tell you the truth, Todd, even just bringing it up and talking about it here, I haven't really thought about it in a while because it's just been so routine to us. So to go back to it and think about like how we kind of did it, it's just weird because now it's just a part of what we're doing every day.
No question about that. I will tell the viewers, as far as our plan goes, we hope to punch ourselves out on COVID-19 questions in this episode alone, this preseason edition, so that by week one, the only thing we have to discuss is our week one opponent for Leominster in the next handful of weeks. So that is the goal here. Let's punch ourselves out on these questions.
No, it's important, and the information needs to get out there. But we're taking the precautions that that the MIA told us that we need to take, and making sure that we're following all the rules that our goal is to get the kids the most impactful, meaningful season that they can get in this fall 2 wedge season. That's the goal, and to do that, everybody's going to do their part in being safe and limiting contact outside of outside of football. It is some sacrifice for some kids, whether they're not seeing family members, whether they're not seeing friends. So we've asked kids to really keep your teammates in mind, and it's about the team, not the individual, and to that you're accountable to everybody else. So it's going to be tough, but do your part. And we haven't had to say much more of it since then. So that's kind of where we're at.
when you define that message, what I hear is not altogether different than any other year. You know, when I think about the discussions you would have with your team about making good choices and making the right choices academically and making the right choices away from the field and away from the game so that they're not putting themselves in a situation where they could jeopardize their eligibility, their capability of playing, and then obviously their responsibility to the overall team environment. It truly doesn't sound all that dramatically different when you put it in that context.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's just a a different variable that you have to worry about. But it's the same. It's consistent with our mission. It's we're being on time, being in the moment, being a good person, which encompasses doing the right thing. Making the right decision, making the right decisions. And that's what we're always trying to get. To put the forefront of what our mission is as our football program.
As we start to frame, obviously, what the game is going to look like. And I know people have had all sorts of thoughts. And again, if you look at social media, things have flown in a number of different directions. So we'll do our best here to dispel what really is and isn't true about how this game is going to look. This is not going to be 7-on-7. This is not glorified flag football. There have been no rule changes in regards to the neutral zone or anything else. The only real change of note has been the fact that players will be wearing masks, as they have been in every other sport that has been contested thus far, in addition, obviously, to their headgear. And then, obviously, some adjustments to your overall numbers roster-wise. And that's it. The rest of it is just the game of football the way everyone has known it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they've built in a couple extra timeouts at the 6-minute mark of each quarter, just because getting water, for our players, with having masks on, it may take a little bit more time, and everybody's going to have like their individual water bottle. So, I mean, the hydration is probably the biggest headache of making sure that we're able to get the kids hydrated, but not, cross-contaminate anything, and, making sure that we're doing our due diligence and making sure that's a safe operation for us. So that's, I think the reason for the extra timeout, the 6-minute mark. Huddles have to be spaced out a little bit more, but, it's not something we have to worry about at all. But, that's another part of it. But as far as the rules go, it's it's football. There's no modifications to the rule play. I mean, once the whistle blows and you have to block somebody, it's tough to make a modification after that. In terms of contact. So it's and I'm glad, because I think to play the game the safest way, you have to play it by the rules that you have right there too. Once you start kind of you know having to modify how you block or the distance from which you block from, or things like that, I think you get into uncharted territory where now you're looking at maybe compromising the safety of the game.
Well, and that's been the great debate, I think, through all the sports we've been covering since the return to play happened with the fall one season, is that in sports that instituted heavy modifications, there have definitely been these moments where if you're sitting there and you're observing, you're calling the game like we are, you watch and something happens and then instinct takes over. And when instinct takes over, pretty much everything related to COVID-19, no matter how hard you try, goes out the door. Student athletes have been taught to play a certain way, to react a certain way when something happens. Deviating from that, as you point out, is actually probably more dangerous.
Yeah, no, that's what I think. It's my opinion. Once you start to get a kid to react in a different way than what his reflexes would normally react, now you're causing hesitation, you're causing weird movements. It's just not it's just not the safest approach in my. So I'm glad that they decided to keep the rules the same, and everything else that we can we can space out, socially distance guys on the sideline. We can as coaches do our part, wear our masks, make sure our hydration is safe, making sure that we're able to distance and do what we need to do at every moment that we can.
From a standpoint of roster and modification, the pod that you will compete in, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is the traditional pod that I think most people are used to seeing for Leominster competing over the last so many years and decades. But the one thing that has been decided on is that there will be no ball below the level of junior varsity. So there'll be a varsity team at every school. There'll be a JV team at every school. There will be no freshman team at any school. And of course, the schools that had started competing at the middle school level, there will be none of that as well. So you have just these two components that you're working with. How has that adjusted your preparation, your numbers, and how you've been able to juggle things?
Well, I mean, our numbers wise, we made it work with our numbers. We're right around 90 kids. So to have 45 on each roster, I mean, that's that was good for us. I do like having the three teams, when we're able to do it, just for the sheer, reason of having, the amount of time you get to play in the game. Game reps and game experience is huge in your development. So that's probably the biggest thing that that's a negative of this whole situation is, they're going to have to, for my whole, philosophy in, our program, the freshman level, JV level, that's about development. It's about getting guys reps, making sure that, that we're teaching the game and putting kids in these game situations where they can, and some significant game reps. It's not just one or two reps and then, you come out, but, trying to get kids in a rhythm, get some really good experience. And that's going to be a little bit tougher. The flip side of that is that, we're creating a lot more competition, in the on the team to get playing time. So, it's tough. I go back and forth on one, if it's a good thing or if it's not a good thing. Obviously, I like having the freshman team. I think it's a good introduction into high school football, into learning. Our freshman coaches do a great job. They did a great job last year with our group, and and they're doing a good job. Our freshman coaches right now, along with a couple extra coaches, are they're the JV1 coaches right now. So their program, they're familiar with the kids. So it's different. I think there are some positives, but there are some negatives to it as well.
No question. I can imagine not just the opportunity, but as you said, when you get those players that are transitioning from playing at the youth level, or maybe who are coming out to play the sport for the very first time, and
Yeah.
they've decided to pick up the sport in high school, which does happen, or transfer over from another sport or something of that nature, seeing the opportunity in football that first year. Yeah, very likely the chances of going direct to varsity are very slim, especially to make an impact. But it is an opportunity at that freshman level to teach the game of football from the ground up. And when we're talking about improving overall player safety, I imagine that level takes on that much more importance in that overall process.
Absolutely. It's a, that level is a confidence builder for a lot of our guys, and just learning how to play the game the right way, the camaraderie with the kids. Like our middle, two different middle schools coming together. It's really a bonding year, a chemistry building year. So to not have that with just a freshman class there, it's unfortunate. I understand it. And we'll adapt. I'm excited about our freshman class. They're all playing on the JV team. I think we have about 26, 27 freshmen that are on that JV squad right now, along with some sophomores. And it's a good group, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do. But again, I like when they're able to have their own season and and build that camaraderie within their own class. Then you start to see leaders emerge, and it's fun to see with the freshman class. Not to say that it won't happen, because like I said, I'm very excited about this freshman class. But we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that we're able to get enough guys in there to get enough good reps when we see in that competition breeds, some success too, and brings more out of guys than, maybe we would have gotten if, someone just has a position, there's no backup to them. You know what I mean? So hopefully that competition will raise the game of some of our younger guys.
Well, that's certainly where turns us in the direction of where we're going next, which is, of course, to the actual sport of football. And of course, I remember us talking about a year ago on that edition of Press Row when we were talking about what would life be like on the other side of that when the sport returned. And I can remember you talking about being able to tell who did the work on their own, away from the spotlight and kind of out of the limelight, and really for the reasons that they wanted to become a better player when we got to the other side of all of this. So I want to ask you, as you're a few days into this, you're starting to see, players come together. You're starting to notice how these pieces are coming together. What stood out to you? What has appeared to you to have done that work when away from, the formal game that's been gone now for almost a year?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that our skill guys are in great shape. The line, obviously, and when we came back in the fall for our, our shortened practice season in the fall, guys were in great shape. Everybody did a lot of great work. What I was concerned about was the lack of availability to have workouts from November until now, so in the off season. So there are some guys that need to get back into shape, but for the most part, guys put on good weight. Some guys have developed really, really well. A lot of guys spent time, in gyms where they were able to get in to do that and do that safely. And so I'm excited the development of a lot of our players, especially some of our sophomores that have come in and put on really good weight. And, it seems that they've matured, even just since the fall. And some of them are really stepping up right now. So I think the sophomore class has probably been the biggest surprise so far in the varsity season. I think I have about, 8 to 10 sophomores that are playing up with the varsity right now. And they're all kind of in the mix of seeing some field time. So it's really great to see. They're pushing some of the upperclassmen. But the guys who played well last year are all, right where they need to be right now. So when we came back, I think just, some of the conditioning needed some work, but in terms of our mentality, our energy, all that stuff is there. The guys are willing to work, and that's what I expected to happen. And, I'm glad that that's held true.
You alluded to this a little bit. Give me a sense of what was allowed and what wasn't allowed, as far as there was the long break, obviously, from the end of the 2019 season through the shutdown. Then once you got into that summertime window, knowing that football was likely on the ropes to the fall, what was or how have things transpired? What was allowed, what wasn't during that off-season, training period?
So basically the month of October, we were able to do 10 practices, no pads. So we were just out there doing some conditioning work, installing some plays, going through fundamentals, just really with the goal of getting guys back together, socializing a little bit, seeing where we're at and trying to get kids, keep them engaged with school, and with athletics. And those served us really well. I think we had, between all the cohorts that we had that were practicing with the freshmen, and then we had 2 different cohorts with the varsity, we had about 80 guys. It was optional, about 80 guys showing up for those workouts, twice a week, which was phenomenal. And that really kind of set the tone for the off season too. I mean, of course, with the pandemic and with, throughout the winter, guys aren't getting out as much. So, we knew there was going to be some drop off in terms of condition. And that's something that we've worked to get better at. The way we practice is also kind of breeds conditioning as well too. Every conditioning drill that we do usually has a special team and, a special team emphasis on it. And then, we're up tempo with our practice. We go from one drill to the next drill. So it's very rare that we're having guys really standing around. So we're able to kind of get back into shape there. But yeah, back to your original question, Todd. So through the fall, we were able to have those 10 practices. And then we had pretty much nothing except for communication, some virtual meetings. We did some install meetings. We watched some film via, Google Meets or Zoom. We did those a couple times a month. And just trying to stay in contact, trying to keep football, maybe not, if it's not at the forefront of your mind, you're worried about school, or maybe you're playing basketball, different sport, but just trying to, let you know, we're thinking about you. You're on our mind. We're trying to, make sure that we're ready to go once, they give us the green light. And, for the most part, the team responded pretty well to that. It was engaged pretty well with that.
And here comes, this year, as we kind of alluded to a little while ago, this season that you're going to play up to the potential of about 7 games if you were to, achieve the pod playoff, and including the game against your rival Red Raiders of Fitchburg, and then a handful of months off and the summer, and then right back at it again for what at the moment, knock on laminate, is a designed regular shaped football season featuring 12 games and a statewide playoff potential, and basically a return to what we knew prior to March of 2020.
Yep. No, it's going to be a lot of football in 2021. And this is another situation I've gone back and forth with too. As a coach, it's less time to forget things, forget your playbook. but it's not a heck of a lot of time to help build strength back up. We have a strength and conditioning program that we like to get the guys in, and it runs, certain times of the year and leads up to other certain times of the year. So it's to not kind of have that ability to build up what you may lose throughout the season in terms of muscle mass or whatnot and durability. We're going to have some type of hybrid off-season program that we're going to work on to make sure that the guys are building their strength back up to be able to endure the next season. And I don't anticipate being a big problem. Our guys are pretty resilient, and they're young, and if they're not playing football with us or they're going to be doing something else anyway. So our guys are pretty much active all year round. So I don't expect it being a big deal in terms of safety or in terms of condition, but I'd obviously like a little bit more time to build up some more strength and let our guys develop a little bit more before they're back on the field again. But we'll be ready either way.
I was going to say, take it as it comes. This is the portion of the program, Coach, where we catch everybody up on the things they've maybe heard and already have known, and then they get to find out a few fun surprises along the way. Let's talk first about this pod, this grouping of teams that you've been put together, and each successive season that we've covered since this return to athletics. We've seen pods that were assembled based on the usual circumstances, which I would call fall one, the teams that Leominster is typically matched up against. Then you got to the winter season where the pods were much more geographic for the indoor sports, as they were really concerned about obviously staying within those geographic regions, given the small confined space that the games were going to be contested in. And so there was some thoughtful placement about the way those teams were put together. And then we get to football season. And again, you have the combination of pulls. You have the geographic wants, and then you have the what is safe out on the field as far as level of competition. And so it's led to the pod that we will see this year. Leominster will be one of 6 teams in this pod, along with Shepherd Hill, Algonquin, Shrewsbury, Wachusett, and Doherty. And then Fitchburg will come along in a separate scenario on the outside of the 6 weeks that are going to make up this season, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But those games are the teams that you have traditionally played, certainly in your first year as head coach, and the team has played over the last decade or so. That's roughly what the this area of, call it whatever division you want, Division 1 Central Mass, 2, 3, label it whatever you like. Well, the bottom line is this is the typical group of teams Leominster has been potted against over the last so many years.
Yes, I mean, I think the only team missing from our traditional D3 that we've had is St. John's, who's moved on to the Catholic Conference. But other than that, it's every other D3 team from the last couple of years, that we're playing. It's going to be competitive. But, Coach Palazzi calls it the meat grinder. I've heard you say it before too, and that's really what it is. These teams are tough. They're hard-nosed teams, and it's it's going to be a very competitive pod. We're excited for the challenge.
And, as luck would have it for most schools, you had one of 2 possibilities with an odd number of initial games. You either had 3 at home and 2 away, or 2 at home and 3 away. And Leominster ends up drawing the short straw, I suppose, in that scenario, with only 2 home games at Doyle Field, 3 games on the road. The layout looks like this. You start week 1 with Shepherd Hill on the 19th of March. These are all Friday nights. Then you host Algonquin in week 2, the 26th of March. Then you go to Shrewsbury and to Wachusett on the 2nd and 9th of April, followed by a game at home against Doherty on the 16th of April. The potential for pod playoffs are there in that week of the 23rd, which is the school vacation week. We're being told, because it's a 1-week thing, it'll be the top 2 teams out of each pod that will play there. And then right now, scheduled for April the 30th, is the 139th meeting of Leominster and Fitchburg. Although not a Thanksgiving number, it does advance forward the overall total number of meetings, and the possibility that for the first time in a while, they will meet twice in the same calendar year in entirely different seasons, which is completely foreign, but is definitely what we're looking at. That's the schedule you have in front of you. And I mean, what excites you about that schedule, and certainly what is piquing your interest, things that you're concerned about as you're moving in that direction?
Well, there's teams on that schedule that that we didn't put our best foot forward with against last year, and I think we have a lot to prove. that we weren't the team that struggled against some of those teams last year, especially Shepherd Hill and Wachusett. I think we were still trying to find ourselves and find our identity and deal with some other not making excuses, but when you lose a starting quarterback and a starting running back, it's you got to adapt. And I think it took us a little while to find our answers, but when we did, we really started to click. Caden Constant coming in and playing quarterback as a sophomore developed nicely at the end of the year. Really started to understand and grow into the role. So to be able to play those teams at full strength and with full understanding after having a year in our offense and our program. I'm excited for the kids to get out there and show them what we really are. It's gonna be fun. We're looking forward to a second chance against those teams.
I have to imagine, even with the strange gap in between, obviously, the last time you played in 2019 to now advance to the early part of 2021 to play again, certainly you, the coaching staff, and the players have got to feel much more settled in the program that you all are working in than maybe you did in 2019.
For sure. Yeah. It's now, it's like I said, more routine. We're not learning these things for the first time. So this is all stuff that they've known and that we did at the end of last year and that we covered during the fall. So they've been in the system long enough now to understand and to kind of grow with it. So, this isn't, nothing new for our kids now. They're just excited to go out there with how they've developed, what they've learned, how that physically they've developed and gotten bigger. They're excited to go out there. They know that we struggled against those teams and we didn't put our best foot forward, in those games, and they're really chomping at the bit to get out there and really, set the standard of Leominster football where we think it should be, and that's very, very high.
And of course, those are the known items, the things that have been publicly discussed and displayed at this point in time. You were kind enough to keep this last one under wraps for our first episode. The players know this, but the community at large has not found this out, but they will know now that the Blue Devils will have a slightly different look. It's not a dramatically different look in their uniform, so we'll unveil those now. Still the base royal blue and white that folks are used to over the last few decades, but bringing this triple stripe back to the pants. We saw this a few years ago, and now the triple stripes have made it onto the shoulders as well, and we'll see it on your three of your captains and your senior leaders as well, Coach. Talk to me about the new threads when you let the players see them. What was that experience like, and how important that is to develop excitement about this program and getting people back excited about being part of Leominster football?
Yeah, well, I mean, the kids were excited for it. The uniforms that we had were, they were great, but I think it was time for some new ones. And the kids, they were very adamant that they wanted tight-fitting jerseys, so that's what they got. And now they're going to have to live with it. So, another reason to have a good another reason to have a good off season and develop your body the right way. It's uniforms are uniforms. Our kids gotta go out there and play either way. But Leominster, I've always looked at, even before I coached here, we want to be a top tier program. And I think, we want everything that encompasses that. We already have the facilities, we already have, the talent. It's encompassing. You have all that stuff in a program. The kids feel good about it. They get excited about it. The community gets excited about it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the best experience for our kids and our community. Because it is such a football rich community, and I think it's important to the kids to feel that way.
The slim fit suit is one thing. The slim fit football uniform, not so much the same. A lesson learned in that fact. But hey, they look fantastic. And obviously, like you said, look good, feel good, I feel like has a lot to do with this overall thing. You see at the college level, and I think at the high school level, obviously we're dealing with far different financial circumstances there. But when these opportunities come along, because they come along so rarely in a 4-year career for a student athlete, I mean, this is by no means Oregon or Oregon State or anybody who is a Nike or Under Armour school per se that we've seen at the college or professional level. When those new uniforms come along, it does generate some excitement, and hopefully generate some excitement that relates to wins, and of course feeling good about the program that will transfer from wearer to wearer of those jerseys.
Yeah, the kids are excited about it, and that's what it's all about. So I'm sure they're going to be very, very excited to run out of that tunnel with the new uniforms on, and and then put forth a great effort that Leominster teams do.
No question about that. As we look toward more kind of specifics of the things that you've been seeing, in your development, on the field. Obviously, you noted the change at quarterback that came at the tail end of 2019, and the need to get Caden Constant to step up in the latter part of the year, and then literally learn on the job. He's had a number of months. Obviously, others have had a number of months. Let's just kind of work our way through some of the position groups here. Where is the status of the quarterback position? And obviously, how have the players developed?
Well, I mean, Caden's come along really, really nice. He's developed his, his throwing mechanics and his awareness and his ability to read a defense a lot better. He's still very shifty, and he's a great runner. So we're going to use him a lot in the same capacity that we did last year. We're trying to build on some of the stuff, some of the knowledge that he knows, and not overload him. But he's a talented kid. We just want him to go out there and feel confident in what he's doing and go out there and execute. So we're excited about Caden and his future over. It's going to be a big, I think, 2021 for Caden. And then the backups, we have Jake Tossi and Shane Booth, who've done a great job. And then we also still have JC Cora, who's, still available to come in and, maybe do some stuff at quarterback as well, too, if need be. But we're feeling really good about depth and about talent at quarterback. I'm excited to see what some of the JV kids do. There's a couple of freshmen that have stepped up right now in practices that are doing really well with the JV program, and to see, what they can bring too. Because we're going to have to find the next guy pretty fast, because all the other backup quarterbacks are all juniors as well. So as soon as they graduate next year, we're going to have to find the next guy. But for the moment being, quarterback is a solid spot for us.
And of course, right up in front of them, nothing happens, including getting the ball from the line and into their hands, without those guys up front, the guys playing the line. Line play was at times one of the great strengths of the 2019 season, and at times maybe was a struggle. What have you seen in the development of your offensive line?
Well, this is probably where the biggest question marks are for us. Obviously return Kyle Philbin, who's committed to Brown to play. He's playing defense there, but he's also our left tackle and is, big presence there. Caleb Naccioni is back as the other tackle. But then the interior three, center guard and the other guard, those spots were kind of up for grabs. We graduated 3 seniors after 2019, and I think we have junior Tony Palmariello that could come in and play a big role for us. Kanan Sullivan, who was a backup in 2019, it looks to, he's done a lot of work in the off season. Gotten stronger, gotten faster. We could see a lot from him there at a guard spot. And then center is going to be, we're still looking to see who our center is going to be. There's a couple of guys that are in the mix, and we'll have to see who comes out on top. But we do have options there, and we should have a good rotation of guys that we can put in there. We're deep, but there's still a lot of question marks to see where guys are at. We're deep and we're young at the offensive line, probably our youngest position.
Opportunities to be gained there for sure. Around them, of course, you have running back, receivers, ends. Talk to me about those position groups. What have you seen? This is going to be it's one thing to get the ball from the line to the quarterback, from the quarterback then needing to distribute it across the field. What are the options that you're going to have for your quarterback core with Caden Constant?
Sure, and I think we have a lot of options. Our skill players, we're deep and we're talented, I believe, in the skill position. JC Cora, like I said, started 2019 as a quarterback. He's now playing a slot receiver for us. JV Rodriguez, who came on really, really strong. It was the middle to the end of last season. He should be a real big target for us. And then in the backfield, you got Voshan Dixon, who's returning. After having missed a couple of games from injury in 2019, and then a sophomore to look out for us, Makai Newton. He's played great as a freshman. Came in and played at the varsity level against Wachusett in 2019. Had a good game there, but he's developed very nice, and he's had a great camp so far. Eamon Durkin's another guy on the outside that you might see. He's going to be a senior. He played a lot there, in 2019. Ricky Encarnacion is another sophomore to watch too, as far as offensively and defensively as well. And then we also have Jack Philbin returning as a tight end, and you might see Nate Taylor in there as well too, as another senior. So we're deep, and there's a lot of guys I'm not mentioning right now that could be in the mix. Senior Mike Crowley as well too. And we have a lot of guys that are stepping up right now and just getting a lot of reps, and we feel really good about cycling different guys in there to be able to get, to be able to get some team reps and, and to be able to get some time on the field. So offensively, skill, we're very deep. We're very talented. Excited to see what these guys do. And that translates on the defensive side of the ball as well. As far as our defensive backs go, we're very athletic. We're very deep in terms of, our depth charts and our talent. And then, linebackers, again, Jack Philbin returning, Nico Martinez returning at linebacker. Still got a couple spots to fill there. And then Kyle Philbin still anchoring the D line. But again, that's our defense where our biggest question marks are. We got a couple guys that could possibly fill in and do a good job for us. Isaac Tyson, who played basketball, he's going to be a senior and playing defensive end for us too. He could be a force in there. So we have some guys that are ready to step up, and everybody's working hard. So the good thing for us right now is that we have a lot of options. It's a blessing and a curse all at the same point. You got a lot of guys you can put in there, but as a coach trying to decide who gets in there, gets the play, they're making our job hard as coaches to make the depth chart and to give playing time. So it's a good problem to have. The kids certainly aren't making it easy on us.
And it doesn't get any better than that when they make your job more difficult, obviously, to have to fill out that roster as you go through the process. That's a good thing. Be no question with that. As I look at, what you've laid out in front of us, and I think about the key word you've mentioned there, options and flexibility, I feel like has been what the world has required over the last 365 plus days and will likely need for many months ahead. So to be able to be both flexible, understanding, be able to play multiple positions. These sound like things that student athletes are going to have to do in order for this to work week to week, not just through this wedge season, but coming back again in the traditional fall slot as part of the 2021-2022 school year.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked to our guys about building value for themselves and, on the field, being able to cross train and play multiple positions, be able to play special teams. That's certainly building football value for yourself. And we have a lot of guys right now who, not only can do that, but are embracing that as well. Not everybody wants to hear, hey, can you try this position? Or you ever think about playing this when they have the heart set on something? But, our guys are pretty unselfish. They're willing to do what it takes to help the team. So, we've had to ask some guys to move around a little bit, but like I said, they're embracing it. And, their answer usually is whatever, gets me on the field, coach, I'm ready to do it. So, we still got a lot of question marks, like I said, that we got to figure out. And, over the next, over this week is the week where we're going to, answer those questions. This is a big week for us as a football program, heading into our game week next week.
No question about that. Indeed, Coach. I'll ask you one last question here before we bring this first edition of Coach's Corner to a close for 2021. How do you measure success in this modified wedge season? What does success look like? How will you know at the conclusion of it all, aside from the obvious things, record, wins, those kinds of things? What will success look like in your mind at the conclusion of this year?
I think it's going to, kind of sound cliche, but, we want to have a meaningful season for our seniors, our whole football team, but for our seniors, where they've kind of gotten robbed of, a Thanksgiving game, of playing a full season. But for them to play meaningful minutes, to create, great moments on the field during this season, it's a special season. We want to make sure that they end this season feeling that way about it too. Like they did the best they could during that time, and they did something special. Regardless of what our record shows, we want to make sure that the guys feel good about it, feel good about themselves moving into next year. So, really creating a meaningful season for our guys. It's something that they're going to remember for a long time. And that's really our goal at the end of the day.
And that's what we'll be working toward over the next 7 or 8 weeks here all across the Leominster Blue Devils football program. Coach, thank you so much. Great to be back with you, if even through this modified format of Zoom. I look forward to a day where we sit in the same room again and discuss the sport of football. But in the meantime, we'll do it this way. And we thank those of you for joining us on this first edition of the Coach's Corner. Our next edition of Coach's Corner, game week number 1. That's next Monday night, Monday, March the 15th, 7:30 p.m. And that will be right here on Rivalry Family Media as we preview the upcoming week 1 matchup for Leominster as they go on the road to Carmagnati Field to battle the Rams from Shepherd Hill. So we'll look forward to previewing that for you next week. And of course, the 126th season of Leominster High School football begins that very Friday, March the 19th, the 7 p.m. kickoff against Shepherd Hill. Right now, as Coach is aware, and as I can tell you, we are aware the broadcast plans for that game and throughout this season are a little bit in flux. Bear with us. I can assure you, Kate, Billy, and myself will be there. We'll call every game with a cardboard megaphone if we have to. We'll place personal phone calls if we need to get the play-by-play into the community however we possibly can. And we're looking forward to it, to bringing you this modified wedge season and the rest of the 2021 calendar as well as we continue over the next so many weeks. Bear with us for a future announcement on those broadcasts. In the meantime, Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates, I am Todd Robbins saying thank you so very much for joining us. And until next week, so long, everybody.